I always assumed the only blue pills in my life would be the antacids I'd need after eating my wife's cooking. Shows what I know about life's little surprises. My name is Tom Halsey, and at 39, I thought I had marriage figured out. Mara and I had been together for 12 years, married for 8. I fixed computers for Cedar Heights Municipal Services. She climbed the corporate ladder at Morrison & Associates marketing firm. We had a nice split-level house, 2 cars, and what I believed was a solid relationship built on mutual respect and shared Netflix passwords. That illusion shattered on a Tuesday morning in October when I was helping Mara pack for what she called a business retreat in Chicago. "Honey, did you pack your migraine medication?" I asked, zipping up her small toiletry bag. The bag felt heavier than usual, so I opened it to make sure nothing would spill during travel. That's when I found them. A small bottle of little blue diamonds that definitely weren't aspirin. Viagra. A full bottle, minus about 6 pills. My hands started shaking as I stared at the prescription label. The name on the bottle wasn't mine, and it sure as hell wasn't Mara's. It belonged to someone named Joel Whitaker. "Tom, did you find my pills?" Mara called from the bedroom. I quickly shoved the bottle back into the bag, my mind racing. Joel Whitaker. I knew that name. He was one of the senior executives at Mara's company, a smooth-talking 42-year-old who drove a Range Rover and wore suits that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "Yeah, I found them," I called back, surprised by how normal my voice sounded. Mara appeared in the doorway, looking gorgeous as always in her black business dress. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like the successful marketing executive she was, not like someone who was apparently planning to use another man's erectile dysfunction medication. "Great. This retreat is going to be intense, and I can't afford to have one of my headaches ruin everything," she said, kissing my cheek. Her perfume smelled expensive and unfamiliar. "Right. Headaches," I repeated, watching her face carefully. "Who else is going on this retreat?" "Oh, the usual suspects. Janet from PR, Mike from sales, Joel from executive development. You know, the senior team." She said Joel's name without even a flicker of emotion. "Joel Whitaker?" "Yeah, you've met him at the Christmas parties. Tall guy, silver hair, drives that ridiculous SUV." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Why?" "Just curious. When will you be back?" "Thursday evening. 3 days of strategic planning sessions and team-building exercises." She rolled her eyes. "Thrilling stuff." I helped her carry her bags to the car, playing the role of the supportive husband while my mind churned with questions. As she drove away, waving cheerfully from behind the wheel, I realized I was about to find out just how much I didn't know about my own wife. The first thing I did was call my best friend, Eddie Martinez, who taught high school gym and had an uncanny ability to see through people's bullshit. "Eddie, hypothetical question," I said when he answered. "If you found medication that wasn't yours in your wife's luggage, what would you think?" "What kind of medication?" Eddie asked immediately. "The kind that helps with performance issues." There was a long pause. "Tom, please tell me you're talking about someone else's wife." "I wish I was." "Shit, man. What are you going to do?" "I honestly don't know. Part of me wants to believe there's an innocent explanation." "Like what? She's planning to slip it into your coffee as a surprise?" "That's not helping, Eddie." "Sorry. Look, before you do anything crazy, you need more evidence. One bottle of pills doesn't necessarily mean she's having an affair. Maybe this Joel guy asked her to pick up his prescription or something." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But deep down, I knew Eddie was grasping at straws, and so was I. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I went through Mara's things. Not just casual looking, but serious searching. In her dresser drawer, underneath some lingerie I'd never seen before, I found a receipt from Victoria's Secret, dated 3 weeks ago. The total was $347. $347 on lingerie I'd never seen her wear. In her jewelry box, I discovered a pair of diamond earrings that definitely weren't from me. They were beautiful, expensive looking, and came in a box from Cartier. My hands were shaking again as I put everything back exactly where I'd found it. The evidence was mounting, but I still didn't have definitive proof. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe there were innocent explanations for everything. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the way Mara had been acting lately. The late nights at the office, the mysterious phone calls she'd take in the other room, the way she'd started going to the gym more often and buying expensive clothes. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out the truth, one way or another. I started with social media. Joel Whitaker had a Facebook profile that wasn't completely private. I could see his recent posts, including several photos from company events. In one photo from last month's Morrison and Associates annual picnic, I spotted Mara in the background. She was laughing at something Joel was saying, and her hand was resting on his arm. It was a small gesture, but something about their body language looked intimate, familiar. I scrolled through more photos, looking for any other appearances by my wife. I found 3 more pictures where they were both visible, and in each one, they seemed to be gravitating toward each other. My phone buzzed with a text from Mara. Made it to Chicago safely. Hotel is nice. Miss you already. I stared at the message, wondering if she was lying about missing me too. Miss you too, I texted back. Have fun at your meetings. But instead of putting my phone away, I opened the Find My Phone app. Mara and I had shared our locations with each other years ago for practical reasons, so we could find each other in crowded places or so I'd know when she was on her way home from work. I'd never used it to spy on her before. The little dot showing Mara's location was indeed in Chicago, at the Marriott downtown. That part of her story was true, at least. I spent the rest of the day trying to focus on work, but I kept thinking about those pills, about the lingerie, about the earrings, about the way she'd said Joel's name so casually, like she was trying too hard to sound indifferent. That evening, Eddie came over with a 6-pack of beer and a sympathetic ear. "You look like hell," he said, settling onto my couch. I feel like hell. I keep going back and forth between thinking I'm paranoid and thinking I'm an idiot for not seeing this sooner. What does your gut tell you? I took a long pull from my beer. My gut tells me my wife is in Chicago right now, probably in bed with Joel Whitaker, using his Viagra to make sure they both have a good time. Eddie winced. That's pretty specific. I've had all day to think about it. So what's your plan? Are you going to confront her when she gets back? I don't know. What would you do? Eddie was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I'd want proof. Real proof. Because once you accuse someone of cheating, there's no taking it back. If you're wrong, your marriage is probably over anyway. And if you're right, if I'm right, my marriage is definitely over. Yeah, so you better be damn sure before you pull that trigger. After Eddie left, I sat alone in my house, surrounded by 12 years of shared memories, wondering if any of it had been real. The photos on the mantle showed a happy couple. Mara and me on vacation in Florida, at Eddie's wedding, at my company Christmas party. We looked genuinely happy in those pictures. When had that changed? When had she started looking at Joel Whitaker the way she used to look at me? My phone buzzed with another text from Mara. Long day of meetings. Going to grab dinner and get some sleep. Love you. This time, I didn't text back right away. Instead, I opened the location app again. The little dot was still at the Marriott, but now there was something else. A second dot. Very close to Mara's location. Joel Whitaker's dot. Because apparently, he was also sharing his location with someone whose phone I could see. I stared at the screen, watching the 2 dots that represented my wife and her colleague. They were so close, they were almost overlapping. That's when I knew for certain that my marriage was over. The only question now was what I was going to do about it. I opened Mara's toiletry bag, which she'd left behind in her rush to repack everything into a smaller bag. The bottle of Joel's Viagra was gone, of course, but there was something else interesting. A small bottle of sleeping pills, prescribed to Mara for occasional insomnia. I looked at those sleeping pills for a long time, thinking about poetic justice and the kind of revenge that would be both satisfying and completely legal. Then, I started planning. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I wasn't actually sick, but I figured discovering your wife's affair qualified as a legitimate health issue. Besides, I had research to do. I started by learning everything I could about Joel Whitaker. LinkedIn told me he'd been with Morrison and Associates for 6 years, working his way up from account manager to senior executive. His profile picture showed a man who was undeniably handsome, in that distinguished, silver-haired way that probably made women think of George Clooney. His Facebook page revealed more personal details. He was divorced, no kids, and lived in an expensive condo downtown. He posted frequently about his workouts, his car, and his wine collection. The kind of guy who probably used phrases like, living my best life, unironically. What really caught my attention were the comments on his posts. Several women from his office, including my wife, regularly liked and commented on his photos. Mara's comments were always professional but friendly. Looking good, Joel, on a photo of him at a company golf tournament. Jealous of that view on a picture from his condo balcony. I'd never paid attention to her social media activity before. Why would I? I trusted her. Around noon, I checked the location app again. Both dots were still at the Marriott, and it was the middle of a workday. Either Morrison and Associates had the most relaxed meeting schedule in corporate history, or my wife and Joel were spending their business retreat in bed. I was staring at my phone, feeling sick to my stomach, when it started ringing. Mara's name appeared on the screen. Tom? Thank God you answered. Her voice was panicked, breathless. What's wrong? I asked, though part of me already knew. It's Joel. Something happened. We were having dinner, discussing tomorrow's presentation, and he just collapsed. The paramedics are here. They're taking him to the hospital. I could hear sirens in the background, voices shouting medical terminology. It sounded genuinely chaotic. Oh no, I said, trying to sound appropriately concerned. Is he okay? I don't know. He was fine 1 minute, and then he just passed out. His face went all pale and he couldn't stay conscious. The paramedics are asking about medications, allergies, that sort of thing. That's scary. Do you know what caused it? They think it might be a reaction to something. Maybe food poisoning or... She paused. Or maybe he had a bad reaction to some medication. I almost smiled. What kind of medication? I don't know, Tom. This isn't the time for 20 questions. I'm riding with him to the hospital. You're riding in the ambulance? Someone needs to be here for him. His emergency contact is his ex-wife, and she lives in California. How convenient that Mara knew who Joel's emergency contact was. How thoughtful of her to volunteer to accompany him to the hospital. What a dedicated colleague. Of course, I said. Keep me posted. I hope he's okay. I'll call you later. I love you. Love you too, I lied. After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen, thinking about the bottle of sleeping pills that had been in Mara's toiletry bag. The bottle that was now missing, just like Joel's Viagra. I wondered if Joel had taken what he thought was Viagra before his romantic evening with my wife. I wondered if he'd been expecting enhanced performance and instead got a powerful sedative. I wondered if Mara had figured out what happened, or if she was still confused about Joel's sudden collapse. Either way, their romantic evening was definitely ruined. Eddie called around 3 o'clock. How are you holding up? Funny you should ask. Mara just called. Apparently, Joel Whitaker collapsed during their business dinner and had to be rushed to the hospital. There was a long pause. Seriously? Seriously. She's at the hospital with him right now. That's... wow. What do you think happened? I think Joel took the wrong pills tonight. Another pause. Tom, please tell me you didn't do anything illegal. I didn't do anything illegal. I may have done something clever, but definitely not illegal. Jesus Christ, what did you do? I told him about swapping Joel's Viagra with Mara's sleeping pills. Eddie listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. That's either brilliant or completely insane, he finally said. Maybe both. What happens now? Now, I wait to see how they try to spin this, because I guarantee you they're not going to tell the truth about why Joel had erectile dysfunction medication in the first place. I was right. Mara called again around 6 o'clock. How's Joel? I asked. Better. The doctors think it was food poisoning from something he ate at lunch. He's going to be fine, but they want to keep him overnight for observation. Food poisoning, huh? Yeah, bad shellfish or something. These things happen. Are you staying at the hospital? No, I'm back at the hotel. It's been a long day. I think I'm just going to order room service and get some sleep. Sounds like a good plan. Give Joel my best when you see him. I will. Love you, honey. After she hung up, I poured myself a scotch and toasted my absent wife. Here's to food poisoning, darling. And sweet dreams. But my satisfaction was short-lived. The next morning, I woke up to a text message that made my blood boil. Change of plans. Joel's feeling better, so we're going to extend the retreat through Friday. More time to work on the presentation. See you Friday night instead of Thursday. Miss you. They were extending their trip. Joel had recovered from his food poisoning, and now they wanted an extra day together. Probably to make up for the romantic evening that had been interrupted by his unexpected nap. I stared at the message, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. They thought they were clever. They thought they could spin Joel's collapse as food poisoning and continue their affair like nothing had happened. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I called Eddie. Change of plans. They're staying an extra day. What? Why? Apparently, Joel has recovered from his food poisoning, and they need more time to work on their presentation. Their presentation. Right. I'm done playing games, Eddie. It's time to take the gloves off. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time everyone at Morrison & Associates knew what kind of business retreat their senior executives are really conducting. I spent the rest of Thursday planning my next move. If Mara and Joel wanted to play games, I was happy to oblige, but they were about to learn that I was much better at games than they thought. The sleeping pills had been just the opening move. Now it was time for the real game to begin. Friday morning, I drove to Morrison & Associates. I'd been to Mara's office building plenty of times over the years for holiday parties and company picnics, so the security guard knew me and waved me through without question. "Hey, Tom," called Janet from reception. "Here to surprise Mara? She's still in Chicago, you know." "Actually, I'm here to see Dave in IT," I said with a smile, having some computer problems at home. Dave Kowalski and I had bonded over craft beer and network security at various company events. He was a good guy, and more importantly, he was someone who understood that information was power. "Tom, what brings you to our corporate paradise?" Dave asked when I appeared at his cubicle. "I need a favor. A big one." Dave looked around to make sure no one was listening, then gestured for me to follow him to an empty conference room. "What's going on?" he asked once we were alone. "I think my wife is having an affair with Joel Whitaker." Dave's expression shifted from friendly to serious. "Shit, man. Are you sure?" "Pretty sure. They're in Chicago together right now, supposedly on a business retreat, but I found some things that suggest their relationship isn't strictly professional." I showed him the photos I'd found on social media, explained about the Viagra and the lingerie and the mysterious earrings. Dave listened without judgment, nodding occasionally. "What do you need from me?" he asked when I finished. "I need to know if they've been communicating through company email or messaging systems, and I need to know who else might be aware of what's going on." Dave was quiet for a moment, thinking. "I can't give you access to anyone's email. That would be illegal and would cost me my job." "I understand. But," he continued, "I can tell you that there have been some interesting patterns in our system logs lately. Joel and Mara have been exchanging a lot of messages, often outside normal business hours. And there have been some complaints from other employees about inappropriate behavior." "What kind of complaints?" "Nothing official, just gossip, really. But people have noticed that Joel and Mara spend a lot of time together. Long lunches, closed-door meetings, that sort of thing. Janet in reception mentioned that they left for Chicago together, which struck her as odd since they could have taken separate flights." This was exactly the kind of information I needed. "Is there anything else?" Dave hesitated. "There's one more thing. Joel submitted a request last month to have his hotel expenses for this Chicago trip charged to a different project code. When I asked him about it, he said it was for confidentiality reasons, but the project he specified doesn't exist. He's trying to hide the hotel expenses. That's what it looks like. And if he's sharing a room with Mara, that would explain why." I felt that cold, hard feeling in my chest again. They weren't just having an affair. They were using company money to fund it. "Dave, I need one more favor." "What?" "When they get back, I want to expose them. Publicly. In a way that makes it impossible for them to deny or spin." Dave looked uncomfortable. "Tom, I can't help you with anything that could get me in trouble. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. I just need you to make sure that when I reveal what I know, it reaches the right people." "What are you planning?" I told him my idea. It was risky, but it would be effective. And most importantly, it would be completely legal. Dave thought about it for a long moment. "I can't be directly involved. But if you happen to send certain information to certain email addresses, and if that information happens to be forwarded to the entire company directory due to a technical glitch, well, these things happen sometimes. Technical glitches can be very inconvenient. Very inconvenient indeed." We shook hands, and I left Morrison & Associates feeling like I finally had a plan. That afternoon, I received another text from Mara. "Presentation went great. Joel and I make a good team. Heading home tomorrow morning. Can't wait to see you." Joel and I make a good team. The phrasing was interesting. Not "the team did well" or "our presentation was successful." Joel and I make a good team. I texted back, "Looking forward to having you home. We need to talk." She responded immediately, "Everything okay? You sound serious." "Just some things on my mind. We'll discuss when you get back." "Now you're making me nervous. Is everything all right with your mom? The house?" "Everything's fine, just husband and wife stuff. Nothing urgent." There was a long delay before her next message. "Okay. I love you. Love you too." But as I sent that message, I realized it was probably the last time I'd say those words to her and mean them. That evening, Eddie came over to help me prepare for what we'd started calling Operation Sleeping Dog. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked as we sat in my living room going over the plan. "Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back." "There's already no going back, Eddie. My marriage is over. The only question is whether it ends with me looking like a fool or with them looking like the cheaters they are." "Fair enough. What do you need me to do?" "Just be ready to document everything. I want photos, videos, whatever you can get. This needs to be thoroughly recorded." "You really think they'll show up here?" "Oh, they'll show up. Mara will want to control the narrative, and Joel will want to make sure I don't cause problems for him at work. They'll come here together, probably tomorrow night, thinking they can intimidate me or convince me that I'm imagining things. And when they do? When they do, they're going to get the surprise of their lives." Eddie grinned. "I have to admit, this is the most interesting thing that's happened to me in years. Glad I could provide some entertainment." "Tom, can I ask you something?" "Sure. How are you holding up? I mean, really, this has to be killing you inside." I thought about that question. How was I holding up? The truth was, I felt strangely calm. The initial shock and pain had given way to something colder and more focused. I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. And anger, I was discovering, was a much more useful emotion than sadness. "I'm okay," I said finally. Better than okay, actually. For the first time in months, I feel like I'm in control of something. Just don't let the anger consume you, man. Revenge is satisfying, but it's not a long-term life plan. I know, but right now, revenge is exactly what I need. Saturday morning, Mara came home. She looked beautiful and relaxed, like someone who just enjoyed a romantic getaway. She hugged me at the door, kissing my cheek with what seemed like genuine affection. "I missed you," she said, and for a moment, I almost believed her. "I missed you too." "How was Chicago?" "Productive. Joel really knows his stuff. I learned a lot from him." "I bet you did." If she caught the edge in my voice, she didn't show it. She went upstairs to unpack, chattering about the hotel and the meetings and how glad she was to be home. I followed her to the bedroom and watched her unpack. The new lingerie was there, but it looked worn now. Used. "That's pretty," I said, pointing to a black lace teddy I'd never seen before. "Oh, that. I bought it before the trip. Thought I might surprise you with it." "Why didn't you wear it in Chicago?" She paused, a pair of panties in her hand. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if you bought it to surprise me, why does it look like it's already been worn?" The silence stretched between us. Mara's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, realization, and finally, calculation. "Tom, what are you trying to say?" "I'm trying to say that I know about you and Joel." She sat down hard on the edge of the bed, the color draining from her face. "I don't know what you think you know, but I know about the Viagra, Mara. I know about the hotel room. I know about the earrings and the lingerie and the long lunches and the closed-door meetings." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her mind working, trying to figure out how much I actually knew versus how much I was guessing. "It's not what you think," she said finally. "Really? Then why don't you tell me what it is?" "Joel and we're friends. Close friends. Maybe too close. But we haven't, we're not." "You're not what, Mara? You're not sleeping together? You're not having an affair? You're not using company money to fund romantic getaways?" Her face crumpled. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." "Tom, I can explain." "No," I said, cutting her off. "You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. There's no excuse that justifies what you've done. I never meant for this to happen. It just developed. Joel and I work closely together, and we have a connection, and you decided that connection was more important than our marriage. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. I love you, Tom. I do. But Joel and I, what we have is different. It's exciting and passionate and over, I finished. It's over, Mara. All of it. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. What do you mean? I mean, your affair is about to become very public and very expensive for both of you. Tom, you can't. Joel's career is not my problem. Your career is not my problem. Your reputation is not my problem. The only thing I care about now is making sure everyone knows exactly who you really are. She stood up, anger replacing desperation. You bastard. You self-righteous bastard. Do you have any idea what my life has been like? Married to someone who's content to fix computers for the city for the rest of his life? Someone who has no ambition, no drive, no passion for anything? Apparently not, but I'm about to develop a real passion for justice. If you expose us, you'll destroy everything. My job, Joel's job, both our reputations. Yes, I said simply. That's the point. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. I don't know who you are anymore. Funny, I was just thinking the same thing about you. Mara left the house that afternoon, claiming she needed to think. I knew she was really going to warn Joel and strategize about damage control. That was fine with me. I wanted them to know what was coming. Around 6 o'clock, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Tom Halsey? The voice was smooth, confident. Joel Whitaker, speaking. This is Joel Whitaker from Morrison & Associates. I think we need to talk. Do we? I think we do. There seems to be some confusion about my relationship with your wife. No confusion on my end, Joel. It's pretty clear to me. There was a pause. Tom, I'm going to be straight with you. Mara and I have developed feelings for each other. It wasn't planned, and it wasn't intended to hurt anyone, but these things happen sometimes. These things happen sometimes, I repeated. That's your explanation for having an affair with my wife? I prefer to think of it as two people finding a connection. I prefer to think of it as two people betraying their commitments and lying to everyone around them. Look, I understand. You're upset. But Mara is unhappy in your marriage. She has been for a long time. What we have together, it's real, Tom. It's not just some fling. How romantic. Did you practice that speech, or are you improvising? There's no need to be hostile. We're all adults here. You're right. We are all adults. Which is why I'm sure you'll understand that actions have consequences. What's that supposed to mean? It means that if you want to act like a single man, you should probably make sure you actually are one. And if my wife wants to act like she's available, she should probably make sure she actually is. Tom, I think you're overreacting. Joel, let me ask you something. How did you feel when you collapsed in that Chicago hotel? There was a long silence. What? The night you collapsed. Food poisoning, right? Bad shellfish? Yes. Food poisoning. Funny thing about food poisoning, it usually doesn't respond to sleeping medication. Another silence. Longer this time. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You took what you thought was Viagra, hoping to impress my wife with your performance. Instead, you took a powerful sedative and ended up unconscious in a hotel restaurant. Must have been embarrassing. You son of a bitch. There we go. Now you're being honest. You switched the pills. I switched the pills. And that's just the beginning, Joel. You and Mara have been playing games with me for months, thinking I was too stupid or too trusting to notice. But the games are over now. What do you want? I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to transfer to a different department, or better yet, find a new job. And I want you to pray that I don't decide to share what I know about your little affair with your colleagues. You can't prove anything, can't I? I have photos of you two together. I have evidence of your hotel arrangements. I have documentation of your inappropriate use of company resources. And I have a very interesting story about why you really collapsed in Chicago. Nobody will believe you. Maybe not, but they'll certainly be curious, and once people start asking questions, they tend to find answers. How do you think your boss will react when he finds out you've been using company money to fund romantic getaways with married employees? Joel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder. Tom, I think you're making a mistake. Mara is going to leave you anyway. She's not happy, and she hasn't been for a long time. You can try to destroy us, but it won't change the fact that your marriage is over. You're right about one thing. My marriage is over. But if I'm going down, I'm taking you both with me. That's not very mature. Maturity is overrated. Revenge, on the other hand, is very satisfying. I hung up before he could respond. An hour later, Mara came home. She looked like she'd been crying, but there was something else in her expression, something calculating. We need to talk, she said. I'm listening. Joel told me about your conversation. I figured he would. Tom, this doesn't have to be ugly. We can handle this like civilized people. Civilized people don't have affairs, Mara. What do you want? Money? I'll give you whatever you want in the divorce. You can have the house, the cars, whatever. Just don't destroy our careers. Now you're worried about being civilized? I'm trying to be practical. Joel and I, we want to be together, but we also have professional obligations. If you expose us publicly, you'll hurt a lot of innocent people. Our colleagues, our clients. Our colleagues and clients aren't my responsibility. You should have thought about them before you decided to fuck your boss. She flinched at my language. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you started wearing lingerie for another man? Was it fair when you used our joint credit card to buy jewelry that wasn't for me? Was it fair when you lied to my face for months? I never wanted to hurt you, but you did hurt me, badly. And now you want me to just quietly disappear so you and Joel can continue your relationship without any consequences. I want us to handle this maturely. Maturity is overrated, I said, echoing what I'd told Joel. Besides, it's too late for that. What do you mean? I smiled at her. Check your email, sweetheart. Both of you. Her face went pale. Tom, what did you do? I sent some information to a few people at Morrison & Associates. Photos, timeline, documentation of Joel's creative expense reporting. You know, just the facts. You didn't. I did. And thanks to a helpful technical glitch in the email system, that information was automatically forwarded to the entire company directory. Funny how technology works sometimes. Mara sank onto the couch, her face in her hands. You've destroyed everything. No, Mara, you destroyed everything. I just made sure everyone knows about it. Her phone started buzzing with notifications, then it started ringing. She looked at the caller ID and declined the call. That's probably your boss, I said helpfully. You might want to answer it. I'm sure he has questions. She looked up at me with pure hatred. I will never forgive you for this. Good. Because I will never forgive you for what you did to our marriage. Her phone rang again. This time, she answered it. Hello, Mr. Morrison. Yes, I saw the email. No, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. But even from across the room, I could hear the anger in her boss's voice. The conversation was brief and one-sided. When she hung up, she was crying again. I'm fired, she said quietly. Joel, too. Effective immediately. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You're right. I'm not sorry at all. She stood up, wiping her eyes. I'll pack my things. Good idea. Tom? Yeah? I really did love you once. I looked at her for a long moment, this woman I'd shared 12 years of my life with. I know you did. But love isn't enough if you don't also have respect and commitment and honesty. And you threw all of those away for a few months of excitement with a man who was probably just using you. Joel loves me. Joel loves the idea of you, the forbidden fruit, the married woman, the thrill of the affair. But now that it's not forbidden anymore, now that it's public and messy and expensive, let's see how much he loves you. She didn't have an answer for that. As she packed her bags, I sat in my living room, feeling strangely empty. The anger that had sustained me for the past few days was fading, leaving behind something that felt like exhaustion. Eddie called while Mara was upstairs. Holy shit, Tom. It's all over social media. Someone leaked the email you sent, and now everyone in town is talking about it. That was fast. Are you okay? You sound tired. I am tired, but it's done. They're both fired, Mara's packing her stuff, and I imagine Joel is having a very uncomfortable conversation with his ex-wife's lawyer about now. His ex-wife? Apparently, he's been hiding assets during their divorce proceedings. The hotel receipts I found show a pattern of expensive trips that weren't disclosed to the court. His ex-wife is going to be very interested in that information. Jesus. You really went scorched earth on them. They earned it. Mara came downstairs with 2 suitcases and a box of personal items. She paused at the door, looking back at me. Where will you go? I asked. Joel's place, for now, until we figure things out. Good luck with that. She opened the door, then turned back one more time. You know, Tom, you might have won this battle, but you're going to be alone. And lonely. And eventually you'll realize that destroying us didn't make you happy. Maybe not, I said, but it sure as hell made me feel better. After she left, I poured myself a scotch and sat in my quiet house, thinking about the future. She was probably right about the loneliness, but she was wrong about the regret. Some dogs, once they wake up, never go back to sleep. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of lawyers, paperwork, and gossip. The story of Mara and Joel's affair had spread beyond Morrison and Associates to become the talk of Cedar Heights. In a town of 30,000 people, a juicy scandal involving corporate executives, expense account fraud, and a vengeful husband was front-page news for the local paper. I became something of a local celebrity, which was both amusing and exhausting. People I barely knew would stop me at the grocery store to ask about the divorce proceedings, or to share their own stories of infidelity. The general consensus seemed to be that I'd handled the situation brilliantly, though a few people thought I'd been too harsh. I didn't care what anyone thought. I was sleeping better than I had in months. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, was impressed with the evidence I'd gathered. Your wife's attorney is going to have a very difficult time arguing for alimony, she told me during one of our meetings. Adultery is still grounds for denial of spousal support in this state, and you have documented proof of the affair. What about the house? Given that she used marital assets to fund her affair, I think we can argue that you should keep the house and the majority of your joint assets. The credit card receipts for the lingerie and jewelry are particularly damaging to her case. And Joel? Joel Whitaker has bigger problems than your divorce. His ex-wife's attorney has filed a motion to reopen their settlement. Apparently, he failed to disclose significant expenses during their divorce proceedings. If the court finds that he was hiding assets, he could face contempt charges. I felt a grim satisfaction at that news. Joel had thought he was so clever, so sophisticated, but he'd made the classic mistake of underestimating his opponent. The satisfaction was short-lived, though. A week later, Eddie called with news that made my blood boil. Tom, you need to see this, he said, his voice tight with anger. What now? Mara and Joel are telling people that you're stalking them. They're saying you're obsessed and dangerous, and that they're afraid of what you might do next. They're what? I heard it from 3 different people today. The story is that you've been following them, making threatening phone calls, vandalizing Joel's car. They're painting themselves as the victims. I was so angry I could barely speak. Those lying pieces of shit. It gets worse. Joel's been telling people that you switched his medication, which could have killed him. He's talking about pressing charges. Let him try. I didn't do anything illegal. Maybe not, but it's a he said, she said situation, and they're very convincing when they want to be. That evening, I got a call from Detective Ray Morrison of the Cedar Heights Police Department. No relation to Morrison and Associates, he assured me. Just an unfortunate coincidence. Mr. Halsey, I need to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Joel Whitaker and your estranged wife. What kind of questions? They've filed a complaint alleging harassment and stalking. They claim you've been following them, making threatening phone calls, and tampering with Mr. Whitaker's medication. Detective, I haven't spoken to either of them since my wife moved out 2 weeks ago. I haven't followed them, I haven't called them, and I certainly haven't tampered with anyone's medication. Can you account for your whereabouts yesterday evening between 6 and 9 p.m.? I was at Eddie Martinez's house, watching the game. We ordered pizza from Tony's. You can check with both Eddie and the pizza place. I'll do that. Mr. Halsey, I have to ask, did you switch Mr. Whitaker's Viagra with sleeping pills? I thought carefully about my answer. Detective, I found a bottle of Viagra in my wife's luggage that was prescribed to Joel Whitaker. I also found sleeping pills that were prescribed to my wife. I may have reorganized those medications, but I didn't force anyone to take anything. If Joel took pills without checking what they were, that's his own fault. Detective Morrison made a note. That could be considered tampering with medication. Could it? I thought it was organizing my wife's toiletries. If Joel took medication that wasn't prescribed to him, isn't that illegal possession of controlled substances? The detective looked at me with something that might have been respect. You've thought this through, haven't you? I've had time to consider the legal implications, yes. Mr. Halsey, let me give you some advice. These two are trying to flip the script on you. They want to make you the bad guy, so people forget that they're the ones who had the affair. Don't give them ammunition. I don't intend to. Good. Stay away from them. Don't respond to any attempts at contact, and document everything. If they really are trying to set you up, they'll probably escalate. Detective Morrison was right. 2 days later, I came home from work to find my front yard toilet papered and my mailbox smashed. There was also a note tucked under my windshield wiper. Stop harassing us or you'll be sorry. The handwriting looked like Mara's, but I couldn't be sure. I took photos of everything and called the police to file a report. That weekend, Eddie came over to help me install security cameras around the house. This is getting out of hand, he said, as we mounted a camera above the front door. They're really trying to make you look like the crazy ex-husband. Let them try. The cameras will show who's really doing the harassing. What if they don't come back? What if this was just a one-time thing to mess with you? They'll be back. Mara's always been vindictive when she doesn't get her way. And Joel's used to being in control. Having his life blown up by someone he considered beneath him is eating at him. I was right. The following Tuesday, the cameras caught Joel Whitaker throwing eggs at my house at 2 a.m. He was drunk, stumbling around my front yard, shouting about how I'd ruined his life. I called the police immediately. Detective Morrison arrived within 10 minutes, just as Joel was trying to break one of my windows with a rock. Joel Whitaker, you're under arrest for vandalism and public intoxication, Morrison announced as he cuffed Joel. Joel saw me watching from my front door. You son of a bitch, he screamed. You destroyed everything. My job, my relationship, my reputation. All because you couldn't handle the fact that your wife preferred a real man. Mr. Whitaker, you have the right to remain silent, Detective Morrison said pointedly. I suggest you exercise that right. But Joel wasn't finished. She never loved you, Tom. She told me you were boring in bed, boring in life, boring in every way that matters. She was going to leave you anyway. I walked down to where Detective Morrison was loading Joel into the patrol car. Joel, I said calmly, if Mara was going to leave me anyway, why didn't she just ask for a divorce? Why sneak around behind my back? Why lie and cheat and steal? Joel glared at me with pure hatred. Because she didn't want to hurt you, you pathetic loser. She was trying to be kind. Kind, I repeated. How thoughtful of her. Well, here's some kindness for you. I hope you enjoy explaining this arrest to your next potential employer. As the patrol car drove away, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Joel had just destroyed any credibility he might have had in claiming that I was the one doing the harassing. The next morning, I got a call from Patricia Chen. Tom, you need to see the news. Channel 7 is running a story about the arrest. I turned on the television to see a reporter standing outside Joel's condo building. Whitaker, a former executive at Morrison & Associates, was arrested early this morning for vandalizing the home of Tom Halsey, the husband of Whitaker's alleged mistress. This is the latest development in a scandal that has rocked the Cedar Heights business community. The story included interviews with several Morrison & Associates employees, most of whom expressed shock and disappointment at Joel and Mara's behavior. One woman, who identified herself as a former colleague, said that everyone in the office had suspected something was going on between them. They weren't as discreet as they thought they were, she said. Long lunches, closed-door meetings, the way they looked at each other. We all knew something was happening. The reporter also mentioned that Joel's ex-wife had successfully petitioned to reopen their divorce settlement, and that Joel now owed her an additional $200,000 in undisclosed assets. I turned off the television and poured myself a cup of coffee, feeling better than I had in months. Joel and Mara had tried to paint me as the villain, but their own actions had exposed them for what they really were. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You win. Leave us alone now." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. But I was wrong about that. There was one more surprise coming, and it was going to be the biggest one yet. 3 weeks after Joel's arrest, I thought the drama was finally over. The divorce proceedings were moving smoothly in my favor. Joel was facing criminal charges for vandalism, and both he and Mara had become pariahs in Cedar Heights. I was beginning to think about what came next. Maybe selling the house and moving somewhere new, starting fresh. Then I got a call from Dave Kowalski at Morrison & Associates. "Tom, you need to get down here right away," he said, his voice urgent.
"Why? What's wrong?"
"I've found something. Something big. About Joel and Mara and what they were really doing. Dave, it's over. They're both gone, they're both disgraced, and I'm moving on with my life." "Tom, they weren't just having an affair. They were stealing money. That got my attention." "What do you mean stealing money?" "I mean embezzling from client accounts. I've been going through the system logs, and I found irregularities going back almost a year. Small amounts at first, but getting bigger over time." "How much money are we talking about?" "So far, about $300,000. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair. Jesus Christ. It gets worse. The money was being funneled through fake vendor accounts that Joel set up. But Mara was the one with access to the client billing systems. She was creating false invoices, and Joel was approving payments to companies that don't exist." "Dave, why are you telling me this? You should be telling the police." "I am going to tell the police, but I wanted to give you a heads up first. This is going to be huge, Tom. Federal charges, FBI investigation, the works. And you're probably going to be questioned, since you were married to one of the perpetrators." My head was spinning. Joel and Mara hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been running a sophisticated embezzlement scheme. All those late nights Mara claimed she was working, all those closed-door meetings with Joel, they'd been stealing money. "Dave, how did you find this?" "After they were fired, I was tasked with reviewing all their accounts and access logs. I found some discrepancies in Joel's expense reports, which led me to dig deeper into his vendor approvals. That's when I found the fake companies. Once I had that, I cross-referenced it with Mara's billing activities, and the pattern became clear." "Have you told Mr. Morrison?" "I told him an hour ago. He's in his office right now, probably having a heart attack. This could destroy the company, Tom. We're talking about a major scandal, criminal charges, civil lawsuits from the clients whose money was stolen." I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me was horrified. Mara had been a thief as well as an adulteress. But part of me was almost impressed by the scope of their deception. They'd been playing a much bigger game than I'd realized. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now, Mr. Morrison calls the FBI, and you should probably call your lawyer." I hung up and immediately dialed Patricia Chen. "Patricia, we have a problem. A big one." I explained what Dave had told me. Patricia listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. "Tom, this actually works in your favor for the divorce," she said when I finished. "If Mara was embezzling money, any assets she acquired during the marriage could be considered proceeds of criminal activity. That means you have an even stronger claim to the marital assets." "What about criminal liability? Could I be charged as an accessory or something?" "Unlikely, unless they can prove you knew about the embezzlement." "Did you know?" I had no idea. I knew she was working late and having meetings with Joel, but I thought it was just the affair. "Then you should be fine, but you're right to be concerned. The FBI is going to want to interview you extensively." That afternoon, I got a call from Special Agent Sarah Williams of the FBI's White Collar Crime Unit. "Mr. Halsey, I understand you were married to Mara Halsey, formerly employed by Morrison & Associates." "Yes, ma'am. We're currently going through divorce proceedings. I'd like to schedule an interview with you regarding Miss Halsey's activities at Morrison & Associates. Are you available tomorrow morning?" "Of course." "Should I bring a lawyer?" "That's your right, but at this point you're a witness, not a suspect. However, if you're more comfortable with legal representation present, that's fine." I decided to bring Patricia with me. The FBI interview was conducted at their field office in a sterile conference room that smelled like coffee and industrial carpet. Agent Williams was a serious woman in her 40s, who took extensive notes and asked very detailed questions. Mr. Halsey, were you aware of any unusual financial activity by your wife?
Large cash deposits, expensive purchases, unexplained income.
She did buy some expensive jewelry and lingerie in the months before I discovered the affair, but she told me it was from bonuses at work. How much money are we talking about? The jewelry was probably worth a few $1,000s. The lingerie, maybe $500. Nothing that seemed out of line with her salary. Did she ever discuss her work in detail? Mention specific clients or projects? Not really. She would complain about difficult clients sometimes, but she never mentioned names or specific amounts of money. The interview lasted 2 hours. Agent Williams asked about our joint finances, Mara's work schedule, her relationship with Joel, and my discovery of the affair. She seemed particularly interested in the timeline of events. Mr. Halsey, when did you first suspect your wife was having an affair? About a month ago, when I found Joel Whitaker's Viagra in her luggage. And when did you expose the affair? About 3 weeks ago. Interesting timing. The embezzlement activity appears to have stopped around the same time the affair was exposed. You think they stopped stealing because they got caught cheating? It's possible. Or they might have been planning to disappear together once they'd accumulated enough money. That thought sent a chill down my spine. Had Mara been planning to leave me for Joel all along? Had the whole thing been an elaborate setup to steal money and start a new life together? After the interview, Patricia and I went to lunch to discuss the implications. Tom, I think you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that your wife's betrayal was even worse than you thought, she said over salad and sandwiches. What do you mean? I mean, she might have been planning this for months. The affair, the embezzlement, leaving you. It might all have been part of the same plan. But they got sloppy. They got caught. They got caught because you're smarter than they gave you credit for. If you hadn't discovered the affair and exposed them, they might have gotten away with it. That evening, I sat in my house thinking about everything I'd learned. Mara hadn't just cheated on me. She'd been planning to rob me, her employer, and probably disappear with Joel to start a new life somewhere else. The woman I'd been married to for 8 years had been living a complete lie. My phone rang. It was Eddie. Tom, have you seen the news? No, why? Turn on Channel 7, now. I grabbed the remote and switched to the local news. The lead story was about the FBI investigation into Morrison and Associates. Federal agents raided the offices of Morrison and Associates this afternoon as part of an ongoing investigation into embezzlement and fraud. Sources tell Channel 7 that 2 former employees are suspected of stealing more than $300,000 from client accounts over the past year. The report included footage of FBI agents carrying boxes out of the Morrison and Associates building. There was also a brief interview with Mr. Morrison, who looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past month. We are cooperating fully with the federal investigation, he said. We are committed to making our clients whole and ensuring that justice is served. The reporter mentioned that arrest warrants had been issued for both Mara and Joel, who had apparently fled Cedar Heights sometime in the past 24 hours. They ran, I said to Eddie, who was still on the phone. Looks like it. The FBI probably tipped them off that arrests were coming. Where do you think they went? Does it matter? They're federal fugitives now. The FBI will find them eventually. But I was wrong about that too. The next morning brought one final surprise that would complete my education in just how thoroughly I'd been deceived. Agent Williams called me at 7 a.m. Mr. Halsey, we found them. Joel and Mara? Yes, they were arrested at a hotel in Miami. They had plane tickets to the Cayman Islands and about $50,000 in cash. So they were planning to disappear. It looks that way, but here's the interesting part. They also had divorce papers. Mara had filed for divorce from you 2 weeks ago, but the papers were never served. She filed for divorce? Yes. And according to the paperwork, she was planning to claim that you were abusive and that she feared for her safety. She was going to ask for emergency spousal support and half of all marital assets. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Even after everything, Mara had been planning one final betrayal. Mr. Halsey, there's something else. We found evidence that this wasn't their first embezzlement scheme. Joel Whitaker has been running similar operations at his previous 2 employers. Mara appears to have been recruited specifically for this job. Recruited? Joel targeted her, cultivated the relationship, and convinced her to help him steal from Morrison and Associates. The affair was real, but it was also part of the con. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen, trying to process what I'd just learned. My wife hadn't just fallen for another man. She'd been recruited by a career criminal who specialized in seducing employees with access to company finances. Everything about our relationship, everything about the last year of our marriage, had been a lie. But as I sat there, I realized something else. I felt free. For the first time in months, I wasn't angry or hurt or confused. I was just relieved that it was finally over. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Tom, it's Mara. I know you probably hate me, but I need you to know that what we had was real. I did love you. I'm sorry for everything." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it without responding. Some apologies come too late. Some betrayals are too complete to forgive. And some sleeping dogs, once they wake up, never trust again. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, signing the final divorce papers. Mara had pled guilty to embezzlement and fraud charges and was facing 10 years in federal prison. Joel had been sentenced to 15 years. Their romantic getaway had turned into adjacent prison cells. "So what's next for you?" Patricia asked as I signed the last document. "I'm thinking about selling the house and moving somewhere new. Maybe Colorado. I've always wanted to live in the mountains. Fresh start, fresh start." As I walked out of Patricia's office, I felt lighter than I had in years. The divorce was final, the house was mine, and I had enough money from the settlement to start over anywhere I wanted. My phone rang. It was Eddie. "So how does it feel to be a free man?" he asked. "It feels good. Really good." "Any regrets?" I thought about that question as I walked to my car. Did I regret exposing Mara and Joel? Did I regret the public humiliation, the criminal charges, the federal investigation? "No," I said finally. "No regrets at all." "What if you'd just quietly divorced her? What if you'd let them get away with it?" "Then they'd be living in the Cayman Islands right now, spending stolen money and laughing about how they fooled the stupid computer technician." "And instead?" "Instead, they're in federal prison, and I'm planning a new life in Colorado." "Sounds like justice to me." "Yeah," I said, starting my car. "It does." As I drove home through the streets of Cedar Heights, I thought about the past few months and everything I'd learned about deception, betrayal, and revenge. I discovered that my wife was a criminal, my marriage was a lie, and my trust had been completely misplaced. But I'd also discovered that I was stronger than I'd thought, smarter than anyone had given me credit for, and more capable of fighting back than even I had realized. Some dogs sleep peacefully their entire lives, never knowing danger exists. Other dogs learn to sleep with one eye open, ready to defend what's theirs. And some dogs, like me, learn that sometimes the best defense is a devastating offense. I pulled into my driveway and looked up at the house that was now completely mine. Tomorrow, I'd start planning my move to Colorado. But tonight, I was going to pour myself a scotch, order a pizza, and celebrate the end of the most educational chapter of my life. The sleeping dog had finally woken up, and he was never going back to sleep. Sleep, 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 sleep.